Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're listening, wherever you're watching. Welcome back to another one of these weekly live shows, live on YouTube every Monday, 8 p.m. Today, I'm joined by three fabulous guests, starting with Chris from Let's Talk Tottenham. Chris, how you doing?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. Thanks so much for having me on. Been about time, but yeah, our shows kind of clashed, but I promised you that my one's off this week because of the international break, so appreciate you having me on. How you doing?
Yeah, I'm very good, thank you. It's great to have you on. Obviously, I've been on Let's Talk Tottenham a few times. Thought I'd return the favour. So
Yeah,
yeah, great to
thank you
have
very
you
much.
on. No worries. Haz, how you doing? Always on a screen together.
Yeah, 2 weeks in a row, I think now. Yeah,
So
I'm
it's
I'm
all right.
I'm happy that you're happy to have me back. So yeah.
Yeah, no, it's great to have you back. Looking forward to getting into it. And Justin, your first time on the show, along with Chris. How you doing?
Yeah, not too bad. As I said, yeah, thanks so much for having us on. It's been weird this international break, so it's nice that hopefully won't be long until the football's back. So looking forward to it. So thank you very much.
No, it's great to have you on. Absolutely. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to smash the subscribe button. It's free to do so. It helps the channel reach and grow. If you are listening on any other podcast platform, lots of people do so. You know, last week got a total of 15 listens just on Spotify alone. So that's one of our highest. So thank you for that. Don't forget to give us a follow and 5-star review. Big up to everyone in the chat. Listening live on YouTube, Chris and Barney so far. Drop your comments, drop your questions, and we will get through them all. But without further ado, let's crack into it and start with the main man, Ange. So coming to you first, Chris. What have you made of Ange's short period in charge, if you like, and what has impressed you most so far?
I'm loving it at the moment. I was so bored last season, and already we've been more entertaining 4 games than we were in 38 games last season. I think what's impressed me most is it's taken him, well, not 4 games. It took him about 1 or 2 games to get his philosophy across and get us into attacking football. Whereas when Pochettino started, it took at least 2 seasons for him to really get that stuff going. And yeah, we've gone from so poor, slow defensive play with not even looking like we're going to score a goal to now we look like we're going to score every time we get the ball. And that's happened hugely quickly within pretty much in just the pre-season, as well as losing our best player as well. And that hasn't affected how we're attacking and scoring goals. Although I do think it's helped that him leaving has now meant that other players have to take the responsibility to get those 30 goals throughout the team. I think Son is loving the responsibility. Madison, you hear his interviews, he's loving the responsibility. And it looks like Romero's liking the responsibility of vice captain as well and has calmed down. Obviously, it helps when Eric Dyer isn't having to babysit Eric Dyer, and Van der Ven has been great. But yeah, I mean, it's been a brilliant start. I don't think anyone really I certainly didn't expect 10 points out of 4 games. I know there were games that on paper we probably should be winning, but how many games last season before that did we lose games that we should be winning? But yeah, how he's turned it around so quickly, I expected us to be attacking, but not not this attacking this quickly.
Yeah, okay, thank you, Chris. Are you impressed with what Ange has done, in such a short period of time, in just 4 games, and what has impressed you most that he's done so far?
I think it's more just him just changing the tactics so quickly, and the fact that players are brought into it so quickly. I do think it's to do mainly with the fact that we've gone to a 4-3-3. So the issues we had last season where we were going overrun in midfield have just kind of been diminished because we play 3 in midfield now. And obviously he has been helped by Van der Ven because it means now with 2 capable centre halves we can go to a 4, so they kind of go hand in hand, and you could argue in some ways. But I do think he's kind of diminished some of the issues we had last season tactically. And I'm just surprised about how quickly he's got the players on board, if I'm being honest.
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah. Thank you, Haz. Justin, what do you make of the main man, Ange, and what he's done in this short period of time? Anything that stood out to you that he's impressed you most?
I think, to be fair, it's more the fact of how brave he's been. I mean, if you look at managers we've had previously, particularly Conte and Mourinho, it was almost like they were just quite happy to accept the players that had failed before. I mean, we kept hearing stories that Eric Dyer was undroppable because of, big managers loved him. They always had to play. And yet Ange was like, no, he doesn't. He does not. That's not what I want. And I think what I've been sort of impressed mostly about with him is that he has been able to very much almost change not just the football, but you can see the culture going back to what it used to be. I mean, we're seeing now, stories of youth players being picked up. We're seeing of this brave sort of new world of, well, okay, fine, we've got an opportunity to get rid of Sanchez, let's get him out the door, and in years gone by, that just would not have happened, so we're seeing more and more of this sort of, I trust these players. These are the players that I want. I trust the younger players as well, which nobody would have seen happening under Mourinho and especially Conte. That just wouldn't have happened. We wouldn't have seen younger players coming through. But I think, as Chris sort of touched upon, is sort of this almost giving a freedom to the players on the pitch. We're seeing, a different side to Romero. We are seeing the one who's backing up the comments of what Messi said about being one of the best defenders in the world. We're seeing James Madison going away to England, and everybody, not just Spurs fans, but every fan sat there and watched that going, well, this ain't going to work. You're not even playing him in his position. You want to get the best out of him. You've got to play him in his position. And we're just seeing it more and more as people are fitting in to this sort of system, buying into it. And it's now a case of we're not just seeing it on the pitch, but we're also seeing it off the pitch. And I think it will be hopefully the start of things to come that, the club really is bought into the fact that, if we can get the Deadwood out and we can really start believing in our youth system, because we've got some fantastic youth players, but we need to really show them that there is a springboard to get into that first team, to take the next step, and that we do trust them. So I think overall it's been really impressive, but again, you've got to sort of tether it with the fact that we're 4 games in, so it could all go horribly wrong.
All right. Can I just add something to what Justin said about this Brave New World thing? So I mirror this sort of to the time when, and it kind of mirrored what I said earlier last season, that I felt like we went back to where we were in the 90s, like Levy took us completely full circle. It's like now I'm seeing like a repeat, and I don't mean it's like a bad way, but I hope no one else takes offense to this. But under Martin Joel, we had Santini before, and then Martin Joel took over and suddenly started playing this attacking-ish football, or whatever style he was doing. And he got the best out of the players he had at the time. And obviously, at the beginning of that period, I remember so vividly, is that we were picking up young players, and he was giving the younger players more of a chance. So I feel like it's kind of like, I guess everything kind of goes full circle, but I feel like I'm just reliving this again from back in like 2005, 2006, when he took over, some sort of time like that. It feels like a repeat of that. But obviously, this time we need to see it through. So there's no point in going this road in 2 years' time, and then it gets to the point where he wants like a few players, and then we're gonna have to,
Love this one, Mark. You've got to stay awake during the game. Perfect comment. Chris, coming back to you. So, international break. How much have you missed? Tottenham Hotspur. How much you missed, and how do you think we come back after the international break this weekend against Sheffield United? Do you think it would be a positive thing, the international break, or a negative thing?
I think it would be positive. You only have to listen to the players. They seem to be playing attacking football these days. So, someone like a Maddison, Son, Kulusevski, I wouldn't say they were bored last year, but it must have been quite frustrating being that they're attacking players. Well, not Maddison because he wasn't there, but attacking players who want to attack, and it almost seemed like they're not allowed. You only have to look at Basuma, the change in that guy from Conte stopping him playing football to Ange go play football. And he's been unbelievable this season, the Basuma that we saw at Brighton. And yeah, I Maddison as well, saying in his comments, I didn't come here for Harry Kane. I came here because, and then he's come here because he wants to play for Tottenham. Whether Newcastle, he would have gone to Newcastle if they were interested, is another story. But it suggests to me that these people want to play for Tottenham again at the moment, and they're enjoying playing football. And yeah, I mean, on paper we should be beating Sheffield United, and as long as we have no injuries, which I haven't read any about, there was a risk of Romero, but apparently that's not too bad. I think it'll be business as usual in terms of who plays, and they look to be enjoying their football. So I mean, famous last words, isn't it? We should do all right against Sheffield United, but yeah, I think after Sheffield United, we've got Arsenal away, Liverpool at home. They'll be the test and see what kind of Spurs we've got this season. But you need to pick up your points against teams below you. Sheffield United at home, we should be winning that. And yeah, they look like they're playing their football, so I can't see anything other than positive. And Maddison will probably be quite pleased, like Justin said, because he'll be playing in the position that's actually his position, not a makeshift one, because Jordan Henderson has to get in the team.
There you go. There you go. Absolutely, Chris. Justin, so watching England in the week, does it, make you realise how much, we love and take for granted already? Ange, Paul, you looking forward to watching us again this weekend?
I certainly am. I think the only thing for me is because obviously, we've seen ourselves in effect almost, particularly at the back, we're almost down to bare bones, and he is taking a gamble. If Van der Ven or Romero get injured, we're talking about Phillips and the tea lady. I couldn't care less as long as it's not Eric Dyer. I'm sorry, it's just not going to be Eric Dyer. I don't mind one of us having a go if I'm being brutally honest, just not him. But it does. That's the only bit that worries me about the international break when we've gone so short. And we're going to be potentially risking it on that. But I think obviously this again is down to the culture that Ange wants to create. He wants to create a culture where he is turning around to the younger players and saying, no, you will get an opportunity if you've come here because I want you to work. I think it does seem very, very clear that, even if one of those players gets injured, Ashley Phillips is the backup now. Which I think every Spurs fan kind of was like, oh my word, really? But actually was like, actually, that's kind of what we want. We complain that we're not developing as a club and as a football team, but actually this is what we exactly need. We talked about the likes of when we had Troy Parrott and about him being given a go and Dane Scarlett being given a go. And now we're at this point where Ange going, okay, I'll give Ashley Phillips a go. Everyone was like, oh, I'm not so sure about that. But actually, that exactly is where we need to be. So, I'll be honest. I don't like international breaks. I really don't, because part of me thinks a little bit differently to Chris in that the momentum could change. And I know what happens with Spurs. We've seen it before where they've been playing some wonderful football, been tearing it up, and then they go and stink the place out. So I just hope that ultimately we get all the players back injury free, and we can just continue, because ultimately, I think, from what I've seen so far, we're ahead of schedule. I genuinely thought this year, I was thinking as long as we get 40 points, I was happy. But actually, we're well ahead of schedule now. So I think that's the key part of where we're at, and obviously also as well we'll get to see Brennan Johnson. So it will hopefully won't come back and bite us in the backside, and we'll go out there and absolutely tear Sheffield United to bits, which I think we should, to be honest, no questions asked.
I think just on that, in terms of the defence, I mean, if Van der Ven or Romero get injured, it's obviously a downgrade, whoever comes in. But it's reminding me a little bit of Pochettino's team. So obviously, Alderweireld of Vertonghen going out is a downgrade, but we didn't really lose anything. And I think that's because of the shape. So we had Dembele there and Wanyama, who essentially just held for, and then Eriksen was there as well, who could pass the ball and keep the ball. When the going got tough, Dembele, Eriksen got on the ball. The other team didn't have it for 5 minutes. And then because of those two, Wanyama and Dembele, Eriksen, I think it was Ali, Son and Kane, not a free role, but you go do your stuff. The fullbacks can go and help out as well, because we've got two at the back, and then Eric Dyer or Wanyama or whoever would slot back in. And now we've got... under Conte, Mourinho, we had 30-40% of possession, so it was constantly coming back at us. And I think the defence was constantly under pressure because they were constantly in the game in a defensive capacity, where it's under Pochettino and now 60-odd%. They've got to concentrate, obviously, but it's about keeping their line, not that someone's running at you. And we've seen with Van Dijk, even the best under intense pressure make mistakes. So we've got Sarr now and Basuma, who are the holding the fort. Basuma can keep the ball, and then when he's out, Bentancur as well can keep the ball, and then Maddison, who can keep the ball, and then him, Son, I assume, Kulusevski, Johnson, whoever's on the other side, go and do your stuff. My worry is in January, because Sarr and Basuma are away for the African Cup of Nations. If Bentancur suffers another injury, isn't match fit, I'm not sure who goes in there. And Sarr at Senegal, I would expect him to be away for the best part of the month. Basuma, Mali, 50-50. But in terms of the defence, I think because they're not under intense pressure with 30% of possession, I mean, against Man City they will, but in the majority of games, I think they're less stressed out and put under pressure constantly during games. So I think it may be okay. I mean, if Eric Dyer comes in, I may be eating my words, but with Phillips, Dorrington, I'm not sure who else. I don't feel as nervous as last year if one of our centre backs gets injured.
Yeah, that's a good thing, isn't it? Thank you, Chris.
We'll see what happens.
So, what do you make of England Saturday night against Ukraine, and how much are you looking forward to seeing Spurs back in action?
Well, I didn't actually watch any of the England games. So.
Well, lucky you.
Yeah, so unless it's the World Cup or the Euros, I switch off when international break. I just go and do something else for like a week or two. So instead of looking at YouTube,
you didn't miss anything.
Because I don't know if you've seen that video about Redknapp talking about international breaks.
Yeah,
Have you seen it?
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about, right? It's exactly that sort of mentality I have. I'm just like, well, I don't want to sit there and watch England play Malta or something, or Ukraine, unless it's like a proper, like a big qualifier. Say it was like Spain versus Portugal or something. Maybe I might watch it, but I tend to not watch international football unless it's the Euros or the World Cup. So for me, these 2 weeks have been like just watching series pretty much and doing the odd Spurs video. And then obviously I follow in terms of like, whether players are injured or not, because that Romero news obviously came out and the Van de Ven news came out. So I was quite worried for like a couple of days. And then obviously I heard Van de Ven didn't play, I think, for Netherlands, but he was on the bench.
Wasn't even in the squad. Wasn't in the squad. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
But that's fine. That's brilliant for us because then
as long as he doesn't play, he doesn't get injured, it's fine. As long as he's fit enough to play, it's fine. So I just sit on international races, pray our players don't get injured, pretty much.
Yeah, no, you're not the only one. That injuries is definitely the worry when it comes to international breaks. That's for sure. Justin, coming back to you, I want to now focus on individual players, especially stood out, and maybe some not so. But starting with James Maddison, have you been impressed with how quickly he's settled in? What have you made of his time in the Spurs shirt, and just how important is he to this system?
To be fair, I wasn't surprised because ultimately it wasn't rocket science, unless you're Gareth Southgate. It wasn't rocket science what you do with James Maddison, which is you almost just turn around and say, look, these players are here to protect you. Here's the ball. Just go and do what you do best. Express yourself. Bring players into the game. Go out there and things like that. And to me, when you looked at, and I think it was absolutely spot on what Ange said to him when he was looking to join the club. You're going to see a different Tottenham whether you're here or not. It absolutely, you can see exactly why Maddison bought into it and things like that. And I think also as well, it's been very clever by what Ange has done for players like Maddison and Romero and Son, because obviously he gave Son the captaincy, which I think, probably was the best choice, to be fair. But he gave him a vice captaincy. So I think the one thing that I've seen there is it's almost like it's given him a level of maturity, a sense of he is a leader on the pitch now. He can't be sort of, because a lot of the time when you get flair players, they can go missing. Well, he can't do that. He's got to be there. He's got to be involved and things like that. So I wasn't necessarily surprised because I thought that's what he would do. But ultimately, as a whole, I would certainly say he's been up there as almost one of the bargains of the season. I know 40 million is an extravagant price to quote 40 million pounds, but when you consider what he does for Tottenham and how important he is for Tottenham, you'd almost put him in a similar category to how important Kevin De Bruyne is for Man City. You would look at how important Mo Salah is to Liverpool. In those sort of brackets, I wouldn't say he's as good as them. I'm saying he is as important to them. And that to me shows that the tap or the potential that he could go to, and what we've seen so far, is something that has been lacking, but I think also what it's done is it's allowed for Tottenham to be able to have more, not just an attacking threat, but also be able to share the goals out. As Ange rightly said, we're not going to replace Harry Kane. You're just not going to do that. You're not going to get a player to come and score 30 goals unless you're going to go and spend the money to go get Haaland, Mbappe, or someone like that, which Tottenham wouldn't do. But if you can share those goals out, and we've seen that already with Maddison, we're seeing it with others, how important and how they're showing it, it really does make a massive difference. So to me, I wasn't surprised as perhaps some of the others because of the talent as we've seen when he was at Norwich and when he was at Leicester. I think what I'm probably, if I was surprised about more, it's just the maturity he's shown in terms of the way he speaks, in terms of interviews, but also as well with the vice captaincy. I think he really does thrive on that, which has made him, as I said, probably one of the signings of the window.
Yeah, absolutely, completely agree with you, Justin. Also, I'm glad you mentioned the bargain, because 40 million may seem a lot to me or you guys. It certainly does, and it's a lot. But considering the prices, you have this current market, you've got players around about his position like Mason Mount and Kai Havertz going for more money. I know I'd much rather have. But Chris, coming back to you, talk to me about James Maddison, and then how impressive you've been. Quickly settled in, and how important will he be this season from what you've seen already?
He's the type of player we needed as soon as Eriksen said he wanted to leave. I don't understand why it's taken, 4 years or whatever. But like Justin, I'm not really surprised he's come in and hit the ground running, just because he's a quality player. And you get some fans saying, 40 million pounds on a relegated player and blah, blah, blah. I'm sure those people wouldn't have been upset with Frank Lampard, Joe Cole when they got relegated from West Ham. It's just, he's a quality player, far too good for a championship, and he's just shown what he can be doing. And I agree with Justin, the responsibility I think he loves. The interview after the first game with Jonathan Pearce, and then he pointed out he's got Harry Kane's number, and he just said, I want that responsibility. I think he loves the responsibility. And my only issue with him is that if he gets injured as well, I'm not sure who we've got as a playmaker to come in, maybe Lo Celso, but I'm not sure. But yeah, I think he loves the responsibility of the vice captaincy, and essentially he is the main guy now when you talk about us going forward, because you need a playmaker in a system like this who is the focal point of everything, and he's the focal point of our side going forward now. And I think he loves the fact that he's that important. We've got a genuine free kick taker, corner taker. He winds people. I think with the Burnley when he deliberately put the corner ball about 5 yards out and laughed. He loves it all, doesn't he? He's become a fan favourite already, I think. And yeah, if we can keep him fit, he'll get 40 goals plus combined goals and assists in the Premier League. He could get. He's already got 2 goals, and he set up 2 goals for Brentford. But yeah, I do worry if he gets injured long term and who replaces him in there, because I'm not really sure we have a playmaker other than him. But if he stays fit, people like Son will be loving him. And you saw when Eriksen played, people start running. Son, the wide players make runs because they know the ball can get there from 50 yards away. When Eriksen stopped playing and we only had Harry Winks in there, side to side it goes, people don't make runs because what's the point? I'm wasting it. Now you see people making runs again. As soon as he gets the ball, you see the Richarlisons when he was playing up top. Son, in the same way that Son was turning and on his bike as soon as Harry Kane got the ball and turned as well.
Yeah.
So he's super important to us, James Maddison, and I think he loves that. And yeah, not a surprise to me that he's hit the ground running, just because he's a quality player. He was injured for about a third of the season last season, still scored and assisted a hatful of goals in a relegated team as well.
Yeah, Maddison was the only reason for me anyway that Leicester didn't finish bottom. Talk to me about James Maddison.
Well, I've wanted him since at least 2019, if not before. The club obviously watching him since he was at Norwich, if I'm correct if I'm wrong. So they have been looking at him for years and years and years. And I think this was probably the summer that they felt like they could do it, because obviously Leicester went down. And Maddison, I feel like Maddison wanted the move. That's the impression I got, at least. And as a player, like someone said in the comments, I think it was Chris, 819. It was even better watching him every week now than the odd game. He looks even better than I think he even was in the Spurs shirt compared to Leicester. He literally is basically our attack, and I do think sometimes he's carrying us. He's carrying us, because without him, I just don't think we score half as many goals as we have this season. Just the fact that he just is there, just pinging balls in, like on a regular basis, makes a huge difference. And obviously, Kane was doing that last season, but he's gone. So he's replaced him in that sense. And obviously Maddison gets the odd goal, which he's already scored a classic Maddison goal the other week against Burnley. I call it a classic Maddison goal because it's his trademark. But and he's just obviously set pieces. He's brilliant. We've missed that. And he's a top player, really. You can't really say anything else. But I'd quite be surprised in the sense that I had some worries in the sense of him adapting to a 4-3-3. But I don't know whether the team's adapted to him or is the players around him. But he seemed to just fit in. Obviously, he's playing with Basuma and Sarr. But I feel like he's taken more responsibility, probably with the captaincy as well. And I just feel like you see more personality out of him here than Leicester. So
I think what's brilliant as well is what game was it? The Bournemouth game, I think, that he played as a deep lying playmaker rather than the number 10 where he played against Brentford and Burnley. So everyone knows what James Maddison is going to do or try and do. It's the same with Harry Kane. Everyone knew Harry Kane was going to drop deep, but then stopping them because these players know what they're going to do and still have the ability to find space and affect games without it. I think, 40 million, it looks like you said, Harry,
bargain,
it's ridiculous money for us, when I moan at about £3 for a pack of chocolate. But 40 million in today's age in football is an absolute snip for players.
What chocolates are you buying?
How much? I was going to say, what chocolate are you buying for £3?
Oh, I have to buy 2 lots of packs.
Yeah. Oh, right.
Oh, okay, that's fine. I'm just thinking you're buying like this finest chocolate and whatever.
Yeah. It was to emphasize the point that shopping is a lot and I don't like it, but 40 million
inflation
is a lot more, but it's good value in terms of football, Premier League club.
Okay.
Also, if you look at Havertz, who went to Arsenal for 65 million.
Yeah.
And
Mason Mount, I
Mason
forgot.
Mount 65 million.
I was at the Man United game and I completely forgot he was playing until they held his number up and he came off in whatever minute it was.
Yeah, he doesn't
affect games at all. Doesn't affect.
I still don't know what he does, and I've been watching him at Chelsea for years.
Well, guess time will tell. But moving on, coming to you, Justin, I want to focus on Christian Romero next. What have you made of his season so far? Do you think he's calmed down a bit? If so, would you put that down to maybe the vice captain role, new manager to impress? He's like his vice captain role, a reliable partner next to him. What do you reckon?
I think, to be honest, it's probably a combination of the lot. I mean, I think he was struggling with, playing with Sanchez, who bless him, suffered from being Bambi on ice. I think that part where he face plants against Gundogan is going to haunt me until the day I die. That is, and Eric Dyer, who just couldn't, took about 4 hours to turn around. So, I think what we are seeing is a combination of responsibility and also somebody that he feels comfortable with. I think you're seeing that he's playing with somebody who's got pace. He knows that, okay, if they get past him, that either Van der Ven or even to an extent Porro, I know he's not been great, but you can see that he is still desperately trying to work within this system. So, you can see, as I say that, but I also think the masterstroke really is the captaincy, because there is this sense now that you can't do anything stupid. You are the main. You are a leader on that pitch. You are somebody who's got to go out there and lead by example. These players, and I think actually now he's although he's like 25 years old, he's like one of the older players on the pitch. So people look up to him. People sort of he has to lead by example. The likes of James Maddison as well, and I think he's really sort of grown into it. I think I think there was reports coming out that said if Antonio Conte had stayed, he would have gone. I think it's actually Ange coming in that's made him think, actually, I enjoy this football. I enjoy this responsibility and I want to step up. I think that is where the key differences is, and I don't just put it with Romero. I think with all of them, they're really enjoying playing under a manager who wants them to believe in themselves, wants them to take ownership of their positions and what they do, and ultimately just trust them. If they, if a mistake is made, it doesn't matter. I've asked you to do that. It was almost like under the previous regimes, it was a case of, if you make a mistake, I will hang you out to dry. do what I said. It is regimented. Here's a script. Anything different, and you will be dealt with. And I think, to be fair, what we're seeing is a sense of, no, this is what I would like you to do, but I appreciate this is new. If you make a mistake, it's fine. But from what we're seeing so far, I think he is really relishing it, along with a lot of the others, definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. Has Christian Romero, do you think he's calmed down, or what do you put that down to?
I mean, the vice captaincy is a big factor, but also I think it's just maturity. He's been in the league; it's his third year in the Premier League. At some point, he's going to have to mature as a player, and he can't just go around whacking people every game and getting sent off. But also, I think the Van der Ven thing is quite important because obviously, I'm of the opinion, whether people like to hear this or not, that I think he knew that he was better than all the other defenders around him last season, and he took liberties with it and just walked around, thought he could do what he wanted. But now he kind of, and I use this word not loosely, like respects the people that are around him in defence, like Van der Ven also has come in, and I just think by that notion he's just performing better because if he respects people around him, he knows he has to play to a higher level. And before we're playing against a Dyer who's just a car crash, or Sanchez who just falls over. And then obviously we had our wing back issues as well. I just think he's felt like he could walk around and do what he liked. And I don't think, and after the World Cup, it kind of showed that to me because I don't think he didn't look like, maybe he's obviously he said he rejected offers to go. He said that a few times actually, but I don't think his heart was really completely in it at some points last season. I just feel like he was taking liberties.
Yeah, no, definitely. Thank you very much. Has Chris talked to me about Christian Romero and what you make of his season? Has he calmed down? If so, what do you put that down to primarily?
Well, he has calmed down, but he's got to be slightly careful. There was that one against Bournemouth where he's gone a scissor kind of tackle, which I think led to Richarlison's chance, but gets that slightly wrong. It looks like a horrendous tackle, and then you're seriously considering a red card. So he's got to be careful. I'd imagine Ange had a word with him after that, but he's definitely calmed down a bit. And I think he's not doing the job of about 4 defenders now, so he isn't getting stressed out. Like I said, we're having 60% of the possession rather than 30 or 40, so he's not under constant pressure. And I also think that the back three, I mean, it's not an exact science, but I would think generally the middle one is the one who calls all the shots and is the leader there. He played on the right, and Eric Dyer was the one in the middle. And I would imagine he was deemed as the kind of leader because he's a centre back, whereas now with 2, it's whoever is the leader, left or right. And I would imagine he's the one calling out the lines, where the line is, and kind of guiding Van der Ven through the game. And the vice captaincy, I think he's just got so much responsibility there now. He's won a World Cup, for goodness sake. He should have a bit of responsibility, winning a World Cup. And I think what Has said about taking liberties, I think that's probably right. And I think it's probably with a few others as well. I think Conte was, make a mistake, get against that wall, I'm going to shoot you now. There's zero tolerance with anything. And, we've all been told off by parents before, and then you rebel and well, I'm just going to do it anyway. Who are you? Whereas I imagine Ange is very much quite a nice guy, quite respected, but do not mess me about. But it isn't, you mess me about, I'm going to punch your head off. It will be a stern thing, and it will almost be a kind of, if you annoy Conte, you're going to get in a huge amount of trouble. If you annoy Ange, it's probably more going to be, I'm not angry, I'm disappointed, which is far, far worse, as I'm sure we all know, than being just told off outright. So I think it's a combination of all of that. And certainly the Van der Ven has helped that he's got a capable defender with him. And Porro as well, who I was saying at the beginning of the season last year, he cannot be our right back. The guy cannot defend. And he's been brilliant in the last 2 games in a defensive capacity. Because I think Romero was having to sort out Emerson, sort out Dyer, and sort out his own job, and probably Lloris as well, who was making mistakes. I think he was just overwhelmed with everything, and probably a lot of his misdemeanors were probably down to frustration, I would think.
But also, I think with any player, and I always stand by this, I always give him a couple of years. If this year he wasn't performing like he is now, I would have just sold him. I would have said January, just get rid. But now he's sort of calm finally after 2 seasons. We're finally seeing the Romero that everyone was rating, let's say, the past 2 seasons, like the real Romero, I guess.
Adding goals as well. Yeah, the Brentford game, headers. Who needs Harry Kane when you're scoring goals like that against Burnley? But that goal against Burnley obviously shows a confidence. James Maddison doesn't need a huge amount of confidence to try a shot from there. But Son with his cheeky little dink for the first one, he hasn't been scoring the goals, but even so, Son not scoring goals, sticking 1-on-1, it's generally a goal, isn't it? So I think there's just a confidence running through the whole team, and that's why they're trying audacious shots for a defender like that and things like that. And the responsibility, like Justin said, of, if you make a mistake, mistakes happen, but, better to play. Fortune favours the brave, doesn't it? So if you try risks, you're more likely to succeed in things because you're trying things that are going to come off, if they come off, occurring good things. Whereas if you're playing negative football, we're playing to win now. Before, it felt like we were playing not to lose, which is just dangerous, I think.
Yeah, okay. Thank you, Chris. Before we get on to the incident where Richarlison coming up upset, the Kane comments, predictions, and the questions people put forward for the podcast earlier, I want to focus on one more individual, and that is Vicario. I still personally don't think it's been talked about enough. So, Chris, coming back to you, what do you make of what he's done? Because he was dismissed in pre-season. He was labelled as the cheap option. And myself, I didn't want David Raya, but lots of people, I think, because we didn't get David Raya, took their frustration out on Vicario. So what do you make of how he's adapted to that and how well he's done in such a short period of time?
I think he's been brilliant, and I think the clean sheet in the second game would have done him no end of good. New goalkeeper. Hugo Lloris is the best goalkeeper I've seen at Spurs in my lifetime, certainly in the Premier League. The last few seasons, he was a bit, but before that, he was superb. And it's big shoes to fill as a goalkeeper. France international, World Cup winner twice. So he probably was quite nervous coming in. New country as well. A defence that he knew leaked 60-odd goals last season. So he's probably quite nervous. But that Manchester United game, certainly the second half, unstoppable, brilliant saves, commanding in his area. And last season with Lloris and the season before, it's like, oh God, what's he going to do now? And when it came to him, was nervous. Don't get that with Vicario at the moment. It's still early days, but he's done himself no end of good there. He's far better with his feet than Lloris as well. So we can play out the back now. I still get nervous with it, but we can play out with the back now because we've got a goalkeeper who can do that as well. So it's not just the four at the back. And, I was not sure. I saw him in pre-season, thought he should have saved a couple that he let in. But, I mean, Gianluca Buffon and Zoff know a lot more about goalkeepers in the professional game than someone like me. So, I mean, we've seen players before who have had glowing endorsements from top players, and it hasn't worked out. But we've also seen top players or players that were kind of relatively unknown had top endorsements and become absolute stars. I mean, that's how scouting happens, isn't it? Someone scouted Mbappe when he was completely unknown. But yeah, I'm really liking what I'm seeing. He gives a bit of air of calmness, and that can only help the defence. I think the defence gives him an air of calmness, whereas last year everyone was terrified what Lloris was going to do. The whole defence was terrified what Lloris was going to do. So it was just a recipe for disaster. And yeah, I mean, it remains to be seen how he goes on throughout the season. But you don't want to start the season in a new club, new country, new defence, shipping 4 or 5 goals every season. 2 clean sheets already. Helped us win games, helped us get points. So good with his feet. I'm liking what I'm seeing at the moment.
Yeah, okay. Thank you, Chris. Justin, what do you make of Vicario?
Yeah, I mean, I'm in the same camp as Chris, really. He wasn't first choice, but to be fair, I mean, the criticism of Vicario for not getting David Raya, I think we kind of have to take a step back here because ultimately Brentford made it very clear it was £40 million. That was the deal. Take it or leave it. And one of the things that we've, as all Spurs fans have done, we've been frustrated when the club have just been like, well, that's who we want, so we're just going to keep going. Oh, we couldn't get him, so we've gone back to what we had before. I think to me, I like the idea that they turn around and I actually just thought, do you know what? Okay, we're not going to mess around. We can get somebody else, and that be it. And ultimately, as we've now seen, because Arsenal were in the position with David Raya where they could just turn around and say, look, this is the deal we're offering. Take it or leave it. We don't need him. You need to get him out the door. So I think ultimately, yes, I would have preferred David Raya, but from what I have seen of Vicario, it to me it epitomizes again. It's almost like a personification of what and Postecoglou is trying to do, which is get younger players through the door, give them an opportunity, get them to buy into his system. And I think it was clear the likes of Fraser Forster, the likes of Hugo Lloris were never ever going to do that. And to be fair, I think from that perspective, he is a quite sort of, you can see where he fits in and how almost that back five. And I think one thing I really liked was, I know it's a small thing, but he did a save against Burnley and both him and Romero just almost like fist bumped each other, like, come on, and it just shows how important it is, not just for the goalkeeper to keep a clean sheet, but for the defence as a whole to keep a clean sheet. So I think they want him to do well. He wants them to do well. And you can see it. I mean, I was at the friendly against Shakhtar, and you could see how he is playing this sweeper keeper role that we see with the likes of Edison, Allison, Anana, people like that. And you can see that, okay, yeah, I get where Chris is coming from in terms of there could be a mistake and it could be a bit nervous and things like that. But ultimately, I think we're going to gain more from it than what we lose from it. So, he's been a really good signing.
I meant the mistake at the start, but the clean sheet has calmed him down now. I thought he might make a mistake if he was shipping goals and goals and goals.
Yeah.
That's quashed because of the 2 clean sheets.
Definitely, and I think you're absolutely right with that. I think when we see what he has been doing and the calmness he has brought around it, I think it has sort of aired across the rest of the team, and especially in the defence, that allows them to go out and play out from the back, which they've been doing pretty well so far.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Justin. Haz, what do you make of Vicario? And the whole situation around he was the cheap option and being dismissed early on. Yeah, what do you make of it?
Well, let's be honest, he kind of was the cheap option because we wouldn't pay up for Raya. And unfortunately, because he has come from Serie A, he kind of has to prove himself. People don't like to hear it, but he kind of has to, because if we did bring in a Premier League experienced goalkeeper, whether it was Martinez, who was probably my choice, or Raya, or anyone else who had much more experience, they would have had less. They would have less leeway actually, but they would have had. As in, we would trust them a lot more just naturally, because it's just, if you've seen a player play in the league for 2-3 years, you're going to trust them more than someone who's just come off, especially given Vicario's age. He's only 26, which is quite young.
Are you impressed with what he's done though, Vicario? How he settled in quickly?
I don't think he's done anything spectacular, but I don't think he's done anything wrong either. So I'm kind of in the middle, because I do think on the first week everyone's going overboard saying he's like rubbish. And then a week later, everyone's like, he's amazing. But I'd argue either way. Like the first week, he was clearly very nervous because it was his first game, and like I said again, he's a very young keeper, so it was a completely different defense. I think it was quite. I felt like I was nervous watching him in the first game. I'll go be honest. I'm not going to sit here and say I wasn't, but I feel like he's kind of grown into it a bit more. And the past 2-3 games, especially last 2 games, he's kind of been a bit more calmer, and obviously that's had an effect on our defense, because our defense have obviously kept a couple of clean sheets and they seem a lot calmer, because naturally it's just like energy. If the keeper's calm, I think defense will be calmer, and the defense is calmer because they're more it's more settled as well. The back four, you can name the back four now. It will be Adoji, Porro, Van de Ven, and Romero. At the beginning of the season, Emerson was playing the first game. I think people actually forget that. And so I think it's more like we found our back five, let's say. And at the same time, I do think people are going overboard with his saves, because I think for me, as for a goalkeeper, a shot stop is a given. But at the same time, I haven't seen him do anything spectacular in terms of like such an amazing save or such an amazing pass that I'm like, wow, that's like Edison or something. Or wow, that's like, it reminds of like Lloris, like one of Lloris's amazing saves against Man City, I remember, in one of the Champions League. Like, so he's not done anything wrong, but he hasn't done anything like amazing. So I'm kind of like, he's doing all right, but we'll see how he's going to be in the next, say, like 7 or 8 games, or if he's going to be a long-term keeper, will he in the next 2 years, will we see the best out of him eventually? Because he's, like I said, he's only 26. So, but yeah, unfortunately, because of where he's come from, he's going to have to prove himself. It's just how it is.
He
Okay,
does a simple thing. He does the simple things quite well. Someone mentioned Jordan Pickford in the chat. I mean, every shot he saves, he palms out into the middle. It's got to be out wide. Yeah, Chris said it. I would have hated Jordan Pickford.
I would have jumped. Oh, mate, I hate Jordan Pickford.
But I mean, Haz said you have to be able to save shots as a given, which is absolutely correct. But for me, shot stopping is a two-part thing: getting in the way of it and pushing it to safety. So Vicario is pushing it wide. We ended up having Lloris going to Jordan Pickford, scored a goalkeeper and palming it into the middle of last season, and just you've got to be palming it wide.
Kind of an extreme example because he's what I'd consider one of the poorer keepers in the league, personally.
Yeah, I mean, he can play with his feet. He can use his feet, and he's good playing out the back, which is in this era of goalkeeping, like Justin said, it seems to be more important than saving shots. But yeah, I like the fact that Vicario is pushing it out wide, corners, throws, or just wide generally, and not palming it back into the middle. On the whole, obviously, there's going to be some that is point blank, which you can't do anything about. But the easy saves, even Lloris, Pickford, were palming that into the middle, and it's just that's not good goalkeeping for me. So
I think like if we think back at the Lloris back in 2017 or 2000,
oh, he was unbelievable.
He was
then.
like his kind of saves, like he pulled off some crazy saves.
Yeah.
And that's why we used to call him world class. But I think it's too early to say that. So that stuff like Vicario, say he's world class. People just need to, I think, just calm down either way. It's just,
well, there you go. But moving on to the Harry Kane quotes, which have caused debates and a few problems thereabouts. So the quote he actually said in an interview is, "We wanted to win at Spurs, but if you went a couple of games without winning, it wasn't a disaster. At Bayern, you have to win every game." Justin, what do you make of that? And do you think people were overreacting?
Look, I mean, I've heard so many people go over the top with it. I think we've got to look at, because ultimately the bit that a lot of people aren't looking at, because I read a bit further into it, in that the journalist asked him, what did he notice in terms of the difference between Bayern and where he'd been before? So the correct question almost kind of led him down that route. And for anybody to sit there and be uproar about Harry Kane this, Harry Kane that, and so on and so forth, there's two sides to this, okay? And I've heard both, and I to be fair, I agree with both. The first one is that he's Tottenham's all-time leading goal scorer, okay? He's overtaken Jimmy Greaves, right? No one can take that away from him. He is a club legend. It's as simple as that. But on the other side of it, he has been in numerous finals. He's been in numerous semi-finals, and he hasn't turned up. Now, granted, others haven't turned up as well. But ultimately, you've got to look at it and almost think to yourself, okay, I get what you're saying and what you're referring to, but there's almost that part that says maybe, if the cap fits, wear it. And I think a little bit of it is a case of, because if you look at you take, for example, the team he had under Pochettino, and it was Eriksen, Ali, as we mentioned, Dembele, Wanyama, Lloris, Alderweireld, Vertonghen, we could list the whole team, and yet there were games where those players didn't turn up. I remember the one where Dele Alli got, a sort of a later on suspension because he punched one of the West Brom players, 2-0 up against Chelsea and then bottle it to 2-2. In the FA Cup semi-final against Jose Mourinho when he came up short, the Champions League final, things like that. I get that there are certain players at that club, and there is a certain culture at that club where winning things isn't the be all and end all. And to be fair, since he's left, we have seen a snippet of it. We've got the Carabao Cup where ultimately Ange puts out a weakened team and we go out, and people are being in uproar about what Harry Kane has said. Yet people have seemed to have forgotten about the fact that Ange did do that. And yet all of a sudden, then we go and beat Burnley 5-2 and everything's wonderful again. And you do sit there and think, well, there is context to what he's saying, but also as well, you were part of it. Let's not forget, you were part of it. And also as well, you can't just bring Spurs into that equation. You did bottle the final Euro 20 was it 2020 final. You bottled that as well. So there is context to what he's saying, but as I said, I do think he does have to take ownership with that, along with a lot of the other players as well.
Okay, thank you very much. Haz, do you think people were overreacting?
As usual, yeah. but, but like my take on it is, and I hate to bring this comparison up. So Conte obviously went on his rant last season talking about the culture of the club, and I feel like I just read something similar with Harry Kane, just in a different perspective and a different wording in some ways, because I felt like he kind of threw the club under the bus in some ways, but in the same way, like some people probably see it like that. Obviously, me being Levy out, I read that comment and thought he's just speaking truth. So I'm saying, because some people see it as he's throwing the club under the bus and showing disrespect and stuff like that, this is why the Twitter's gone ballistic over it. But let's be honest, Conte said the same thing. Some people agreed with what he said, some people didn't. Kane says something similar. I'd argue this is quite similar. And both of them are 100% right. There's no. It's not like when Spurs fans lose a game, because I know, because obviously I've been on Twitter for years, right? So in the Poch years, I'll give you an example. When we finished third and we didn't win the title against Leicester, it's like, oh no, it's fine. We just progressed. We made the top four. It's great, all great. So Spurs fans like, it's all great. And then the season after that, I got blocked by loads of people in that transfer window because I was arguing at people like Nkudu, Janssen, Paul Lopez. Who else? Bad play we signed that summer. Like all these bad players we signed that summer. We made it. Njai, yeah. Nkudu, that's the other one. Yeah, and then apart from Wanyama that summer, none of those players made any impact in the team. We finished second, but people were still telling me, "Oh, well, because of that transfer window," which sounds ludicrous. That's the reason why we finished second, because we had, even though that transfer window was, for me, rubbish for a team that just qualified for the Champions League and is potentially aspiring to win the league. I was told, "Oh no, that's fine. We finished second. Look." But we didn't win the title, did we? So there's a carry culture around like the club and the fans that accepting not winning is okay. Whilst if that happened to, say, like Arsenal, or obviously who want Arteta out, some still want Arteta out, or like Chelsea, or Liverpool, because they're Liverpool fans. I'm in a Liverpool fan chat right now, and they're going ballistic still. Like their fans have a different culture.
Yeah.
Their club has a very different culture. At Tottenham, it's not like if we like I said, we finished second, it's still seen as like some sort of successful, even though we could have, with a few extra players or spent a bit more money, we could have won the title potentially. It's still seen as okay, and I think that's what Kane's alluding to. That's how I understood his comments. Whilst at Bayern Munich, if you don't win the title, Bayern Munich, the fans will probably crucify you.
Yeah, fair enough. Thank you very much, Haz. Bayern expect to be winning titles and winning domestic trophies. That's for me the major difference. Chris, before we move on, do you think that fans are overreacting? And your quick thoughts on the whole situation and the quotes?
No Spurs fan can really have a go at Harry Kane, all-time leading goal scorer. Any normal player would have left us about 4 years ago. The fact that he's a Spurs fan has meant he stayed, but I mean, what he said, I think he's probably right, isn't he? In terms of the culture, if the chairman and everyone like that wanted to win and it was had to win, they'd have bought the defenders that we needed, the players that we needed in previous transfer windows. But what I don't really understand from it is, it's almost like in hindsight, he's accepted that it's not a disaster if we don't win. Justin mentioned the cup finals and things like that, but just because the ownership or the culture of the club is, it's not a disgrace if we lose a couple of games, doesn't mean you have to accept that. You can, you're a senior leader, vice captain, and certainly last season for most part the captain, because Lloris was injured. If Ronaldo came into our team and then it was deemed not a disgrace that we lost a couple of games, he wouldn't accept that. He'd be in the dressing room, calling, demanding that we win games and everything like that. And Harry Kane's allowed to do that. So it's almost like he's just accepted that, and it's only the fact that they have to win at Bayern that he's now has to win, because that's the club culture, not because of his thought. So I thought it was a little bit odd that it made it sound like he's accepted that they don't have to win at Spurs, whereas he's always talked about winning. And whether that shows a lack of mentality or leadership or not, I'm not really sure how to look into that. I just thought that was a bit odd. But in terms of what he said with the culture, it's not a disgrace if we lose a couple of games. I think that's probably spot on.
Okay, thank you very
Justin
much.
kind of summed it up in his one of the first sentences, your response, Harry, when he said, "Oh well, as soon as we beat Burnley, everyone forgot about the Carabao Cup team." It's like as if like, oh no, well we got knocked out the cup. It's fine now because we beat Burnley.
I mean, my kind of rebuttal to that is that with Ferguson at Man United, when they lost the game, good teams lose a game because it happens. They don't lose another one on the bounce. They go and win quickly and put it right quickly. And then generally with Man United, it was forgotten about. But I mean, I'm still angry about the League Cup because what an opportunity that was. It's no Europe game every weekend rather than a weekday and then a weekend. So I'm still angry about it. But in terms of, I mean, can you imagine the anger if we'd have ended up losing to Burnley as well? Like last season and the season before, we vested players for the cup games, lost the cup game, and then lost the game that we vested players for. So, but yeah, but I mean, we shouldn't have put out that weakened team again. A couple of changes maybe, but not 9.
No. Okay, moving on to looking ahead to our fixtures. So our next game, here are some of our next games. So Sheffield United at home this weekend, Arsenal away, Liverpool at home, Luton away, Fulham at home, and then Crystal Palace away. So I'm going to go around one by one and ask you how many points you think we're going to get of those next 6 games. So Haz, how many points are we going to get from those 6 games?
Can you read the fixtures again? Sorry.
That's all right. So we've got Sheffield United at home,
okay.
Arsenal away, Liverpool at home, Luton away, Fulham at home, and Crystal Palace away.
12 points.
Wow, okay. 12 points going for Haz.
I'm saying we're going to lose at the Emirates. That'll be our first loss of the season.
Oh, okay. Let's hope not. Go on, Justin.
I think looking at it, I would possibly say over those 6 games, possibly similar. I would have said 12 to 13 points. I do agree. I looking at the fixtures, I think we'll struggle in terms of Arsenal at the Emirates. Okay. Havertz isn't playing brilliantly, but Arsenal, you saw how they came back and got the result against United, and look at some of the other fixtures. I think we should beat Sheffield United. I think we should beat Luton, and we should be beating Fulham. And Palace is always a tricky one for us. It always is. That's the one place we can absolutely be brilliant, and then there's others that absolutely we could stink at. So it's very sort of hit and miss. So I tend to probably agree with Haz there. I'd say 12 to 13 points, if I'm being honest.
Okay, thank you, Justin. Chris, how many points are you getting out of those 6 games?
Yeah. I think around similar as well. I don't think we'll lose to Arsenal. I think he'll have them so fired up. Last year, I thought we weren't fired up at all. It was just like, oh, here we are, a game. And derbies are all about who wants it more. If you don't want it, sometimes it does go to form, but the majority of the time it goes to who wants it more. And I think he'll have them so fired up. I'm actually quite worried about Luton away.
I put that as a point, Chris. I'm putting that as a point.
I think they'll have a scalp there at some point. It's an unknown quantity there. You could be playing football in the corner of your eye, see some geezer watching the chase in his living room because he's not interested in football. That's not what you normally see at a football match. It's going to be really close to the pitch. The fans at Luton are going to be really happy about being there. I'm not sure if it is, but it's they haven't had too many top 6 sides going there. This might be the first, so they'll be really buoyed up for that. They're going to make it difficult to play against. Palace, we struggle there. Fulham, we should beat at home. Liverpool are there for the taking. We're at home as well. Sheffield United, we should be winning. So, I think we'll lose one of them. What one it will be, I'm not sure. But I don't think we'll lose to Arsenal. I don't think we'll win. I don't know.
I'll bite my hand off for a draw right now. If someone
I think a
it.
draw is a good result, and I think we can get that because I think he'll have them so fired up for Derby game.
Do you think it's not been like a 4-4 like under Harry?
I'm not sure.
That again. That was bonkers. That was.
I do worry about Luton and Palace.
Okay, yeah. You've got to win, what's in front of you. You've got to win the small games because last season, we did slip up in the smaller games. I think it's been guilty. We've done it for a few years now. So moving on, before we get to the questions that people put forward on Twitter, Richarlison, etc., I want to go around. I just want your score prediction for the game this weekend. So, Haz, I come to you first. Your score prediction, Sheffield United.
2-1 Tottenham.
Haz is going 2-1 Tottenham. Justin?
I'll go 3-1 Tottenham.
Love the positivity. Chris?
I'll go with Justin.
You go the same. Okay, there you go. You've got 3 wins. That's all that matters. As long as we win, I don't care how.
We have to win that one. If we want to achieve anything, you have to win your home games, and you have to win against the lesser teams. With all due respect to Sheffield United, the teams are favoured to be near the bottom.
If you want to compete as well, the teams that the harder games, that Arsenal and Liverpool, in terms of league position, you've got to win what's in front of you and win the smaller games. So moving on to the questions that people kindly put forward on Twitter this morning. First one I give to you, Chris, saying this is Barney. Big up to Barney if you're still listening. Saying what's more important to all of you, a high league finish, example top 4, or a long cut run in the FA Cup?
Well, it depends what you mean by a long cut run. If we end up getting knocked out in the final, then I couldn't care less about it. It's all about winning the thing. So a cup win for me, if we finish 6th, we've improved in the league, but we have to start winning cups at some point. And I think what happened after the League Cup, I don't think he'll make that many changes again, unless we get a real low team at home. But yeah, I mean, I'd be delighted to get into Champions League again, but if we finished 4th and got knocked out in the FA Cup in the 5th round, then
Barney means winning the cup.
Yeah, I'd be disappointed. But if we finish 6th, 7th, which is an improvement on last year, and won an FA Cup, it's a better season for me. And we've been so starved of success in terms of trophies. And I've put a bet. I put a bet on the League Cup as well. I put a bet on the FA Cup the second that Harry Kane lost his first game and lost that trophy, because I think we'll win a trophy before him. If the Bundesliga is close again. But the League Cup then didn't work out there, so I've only got the FA Cup left. But it would be fairy tale, wouldn't it? And written in the stars, Harry Kane leaves to win trophies. We go and win a trophy without him.
Maybe it was a bad luck, after all. But Dortmund doesn't haven't seemed to start fantastically. But obviously that can change only half a dozen games in. Has next question from Ben. Ben talks Tottenham. He says, who will be our player of the season? Go for it.
Maddison.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Fair enough. Yeah, he's definitely shone so far and settled in really quickly. Next question for you, Justin. Oh, there you go. I'm back. Robbie said, would you play Son through the middle for the rest of the season? I put that question to you, Justin.
100%. I think he seems to have thrived in the role. I think ultimately, in terms of from what Spurs are sort of offering, I think it's difficult for Richarlison. I think Richarlison has to adapt more because it's a case of the Son's, although he's up through the middle, it's almost like he's just got a free roll, a bit like Maddison. If you look at it, he'll drop wide, he's sort of all over the show, and it's lovely to see because it just means that defenses don't know who to pick up. Whereas I think more Richarlison is that out and out number 9, and I think that's why we saw Tottenham go out and get Brennan Johnson, because ultimately I think Brennan Johnson suits that type of style.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't be surprised either in January or in the summer if Richarlison leaves. I think if the Saudis come back in for him and put in a decent enough bid, I think Tottenham would take it and let him go, because I think what we're now looking for are players that are versatile, players that can just play across the front 3, very similar to what Liverpool can do. They can, Salah doesn't just, yes, he scores all the goals, but predominantly he plays out wide, but does cut inside. And I think that's what we're going to see more of. But I think for me, Son has to start there, but with the variation that he can move all over the show.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. Hasn't come back to you for the next question. Second, third of the part from Robbie saying, will Brennan Johnson start the weekend?
No. I want him to, but I don't think he will.
Don't think he will. Kulusevski keeps that place for now.
Unfortunately.
Well, there you go. He has done well though for Sweden in the international break so far. Chris, the last part of Robbie's question saying, having the joint top clean sheets so far. I know it's early doors. How many goals do you think you'll concede in the next 3 games? Next 3 games are Sheffield United at home. You got Arsenal away and Liverpool at home.
Well, I mean, Sheffield United, if we concede more than 1, I think that's bad. Really, we should be looking for a clean sheet there and a comfortable win. I mean, Arsenal could be 0-0, could be 1-0, could be 7-0, could be 4-4, could be anything. And Liverpool, again, I mean, those 2 games are going to tell us what kind of Tottenham we've got this season. Because
and how far we've come.
It's fine going attacking against these teams who are going to sit back. Arsenal at home, Liverpool anywhere aren't going to sit back. And we do leave ourselves open every now and then with the way that we play. So we could easily concede a hatful in those 2 games. But we could end up, him shoring it up a little bit because he knows it's good teams. So yeah, I have no idea. I'm gonna wimp out to your question there and say I don't know.
Can I answer? I mean, I think
Go for it.
6.
I'd say 4.
Should I say why you say 6? We'll beat Sheffield United like 2-3-1. We'll lose 3-2 at the Emirates, and we'll draw 2-2 with Liverpool.
I think we conceded personally about 3 or 4. But yeah, as long as we don't concede too many. Justin, come to you. So the last question from Chris is actually 2 parts to it. First part is, will we ever see Troy Parrott in the first team after so much hype? Feels about 5 years now.
I think, to be honest, I think there's a lot of sympathy for Troy, because ultimately the problem was that we were in a situation where Harry Kane was the number 9, and it was Harry Kane or nothing. And you heard the excuses. I remember Morata saying that he would have joined Tottenham if Harry Kane wasn't there, and other players would have done it. And the problem then also stemmed from the fact that the managers that they were playing under, Mourinho, Conte, wouldn't trust anybody else. So I think it was the fact that the fans were just desperate because they knew how important Kane was to the way that we were playing in those teams, that we needed somebody else to come in. I think it's going to be an interesting one. I think he is in last chance saloon. He's got to go to Holland and tear it up, really. For me, I think if he goes out there and just scores 5-6 goals through the season, I don't see it. I think he'll probably be sold to a championship team. But I think also maybe similar in terms of Dane Scarlett, same age. He's got to now start showing that he can start to step up. He had a sort of a very hit and miss, opportunity at Portsmouth, but he's at Ipswich now in the Championship. He's got to do the same. Yeah, so he's got to start stepping up as well. So I think it is going to be a big season for him, for Troy Parrott. And I really do hope so, because I think it would be nothing better than to see him kicking on and ultimately then not having to worry about the likes of Richarlison being there, because my ultimate worry for him is I just don't think he fits the system anymore.
I think Troy Parrott to me comes across as more of a number 10 from what I've seen of him than a striker, but maybe I'm wrong. I haven't seen a lot, but
we'll see how he plays for Ipswich. I think that'll be the key part. Not at Ipswich, how he plays out in Holland. That'll be the key part for us to actually see.
Yeah, how many goals he scores and what impact he has. For me, this is Troy Parrott's last chance. I believe Dane Scarlett's a bit younger, and he's obviously got the contract. So I think Dane Scarlett will be okay. Obviously, there's a time where you need him to step up this season or in the future. But for Troy Parrott, for me, is now or never. Chris, I'll give you the last question part from Chris, and that is, when the African Cup of Nations start with the loss of a couple of important players such as Sarr and Basuma, do you see us struggling, or do you think we have enough to cope because Bentancur will be back? Good question.
It's going to rely on whether Bentancur is Bentancur. With the ACL, is there going to be a worry that I don't want to go into too many challenges like I used to in case I snap it again? Am I going to get match fitness? I think he's back in November, isn't he? In African Cup of Nations is January. So, but if we're playing well and those two are playing well, is he even going to be put into the team to get those games and get those minutes?
That's the question.
And then it depends on how far these guys go in the tournament. Like I said, Sarr for Senegal, I'd expect him to be gone for the majority of that tournament. Mali, they could do well, they might not do well. It depends. And then it's who else goes in there with Bentancur, Højbjerg or Skip, which, I mean, they're not the worst players in the world that you've ever seen, but in terms of what Sarr and Basuma are doing at the moment, it's a massive drop off.
I reckon it will be Bentancur, Maddison, and Højbjerg personally for that period, but you've got Skip who'd be close. There's also maybe, but it's close.
If one of those gets injured as well, and then you've got two of them at
then
the
we've got
African Cup of Nations, so. I'd like to see Bentancur get some game time between November, serious game time, not like 20 minutes here or there every now and then, but actual run of actual games, because he's going to be needed in that month, certainly, and he'll be playing the majority of that month, I would have thought, injuries and suspensions aside.
Yeah.
And then, whoever else goes in there. But whoever else goes in there, Ange must know, okay, well, he's going to be in there. So they've got to get given some game time as well. I don't think you can have Sarr, Basuma playing every single game, and then for a month, right, you've got to step in. But yeah, it depends on if Bentancur can get match fit, if he's still the Bentancur that we saw last season after his ACL, and who else is playing in there as well. And I'm not sure what the games are that we've got during that period either. Good
question. I'm actually not sure, but that is it for today's show. Massive thank you for everyone who's tuning in. A lot of people tuning in because obviously people usually usually watch after or listen on Spotify. We had a lot more people consistently watch throughout, so massive thank you for that. Massive thank you to 3 fabulous guests here. Firstly, Chris, thank you for coming on your first time, I believe, on the show. Where can people find you? Talk to me about Chris's Magic and Let's Talk Tottenham.
Yeah, well, first and foremost, thanks so much for inviting me on. Been really good. And I've spoken to you a few times on mine, but great to be able to return the favour and go on yours. And
it's been great.
And Justin and Haz spoken to you plenty of times as well. It's always great talking to you. But Let's Talk Tottenham is my channel, Spurs channel. So that's on Fridays, 12:30. Mondays, 7:30. So Friday's generally a preview of the weekend. Monday's usually a review of what's happened at the weekend, and then anything in between as well. Chris's Magic, little side thing, me doing a magic trick or a tutorial every Wednesday, 7:30 p.m. So check that out. And just a bit of fun, that one outside of the football community. But Let's Talk Tottenham, Chris's Magic. And make sure you hit like here, subscribe here if you haven't done so already, and to any other channels that are on here as well. And once again, thanks so much for having me on.
Absolutely. Go and support everyone in the Spurs family. Thank you for coming on, Chris. Has pretty much a regular on the show now. I follow you everywhere. You follow me everywhere. Where can people find you next?
Apart from this show, I'm on View from the South quite often on the weekend games. I won't be on this weekend because I've got to go do something after the game. So I host a show now on a Friday, so that'll be on a Friday. I also have my own channel, which I stream like once or twice a week. I'm not too sure when my next stream is going to be actually this week. Maybe on Wednesday or something, because we have got a game on the weekend, but I kind of lost track of the international break, so it's like I don't know when to do the next show. But I do the odd video here and there as well. I've got a video about Richarlison versus Son, because I think this debate is like come back, in my opinion, again, because Son playing through the middle has kind of caused them to have a rival. Rival is probably not the right word, but they're going to be fighting for the same spot, I think, this season. And obviously, the Richarlison versus Son thing is something that started last season. So I did another video on it today, which came out this morning. And then also, I've got the Haz versus Haz show on the Thursday on Marlon's channel too. So View from the South. So you find me on there. Haz Spurs TV, my own channel, and you can find me on here as well. And you haven't subscribed to anyone around here or anyone else on YouTube, that's the Tottenham YouTuber, just go and subscribe to them. As well.
Yeah, absolutely. Go check out Haz on socials as well. Thank you for coming on. Justin, been on with you and Haz a few times, it's fair to say, on a View from the South stand. Thank you for coming on your first time on the show. Where can people find you, and what show will you be on next?
Well, to be honest, I wouldn't be surprised if I was going to say I'd be on with Haz on Saturday. But to be honest, as he said, he clearly can't be bothered. How dare he? But to be honest, I go on with most people here, really. Chris, occasionally I'll be able to jump on his and Haz. Likewise, but to be honest, mainly it's a case of the reactions afterwards. So I generally do that with a View from the South. So, you know, find us on there. But generally, I'm more sort of, you know, someone on Twitter, you know, giving thoughts, opinions, things like that, you know, trying to just sort of be, you know, rather than hatred or things like that, just try and sort of create a culture where actually, you know, it's good to debate. That's the clear part about it. Nobody's right, nobody's wrong. We can all agree that, you know, we'd like things to be better, but ultimately I'll just be on there. But as I said, thank you so much for having us on. And as I said, hopefully I'll be able to do it again sometime soon.
Absolutely, you're more than welcome. Always, Justin. You know that. So yeah, massive thank you once again, everyone. If you are new to the channel, don't forget to smash the subscribe button because it's free to do so, and it is massively appreciated. Sadly, the majority of you do listen and watch, along with a lot of other channels, don't subscribe. It is free to do so and takes 2.5 seconds. So please do that. Go check out all these guys on socials. If you are listening to the podcast, any podcast platform, don't forget to give us a follow and 5-star review. But as we always say on this channel and on the show, come on you Spurs.
Come on you Spurs.